Hey, what's going on, everyone? How are we doing today? We are in my office right now, by the way. I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about some scoliosis. First off, I wanted to show you guys a couple of our cool signs that we have in our practice. Check those out, which goes with my the power that made the body heals the body sign. But anyway, today I wanted to take a couple minutes if I can, and I'll close the door here, and I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about scoliosis. More or less though, adolescent, so childhood scoliosis, because it's something that I'm seeing a lot of right now in my practice. So if you have someone that has a child that may have some curvature of their spine, this is the talk that you want to listen to and kind of take some action on. If you have questions about kids having to do with scoliosis, please ask it below. I will do my best to jump on and answer this as we go along here. But yeah, so let's talk about this. I'm going to try to put my phone down here. Here we go. Perfect. All right, so let's talk scoliosis. First off, what is scoliosis and what to do about it? And did you actually know that there's two different types of scoliosis that's out there? So scoliosis is what they call a curvature in the spine. So a lot of times people will notice this because their child will start having a lot of back pain. And it'll be not necessarily really specific back pain. So if you're an adult and you're watching this, you guys typically know that specific back pain is like, hey, Bo, I hurt my back right here, or it hurts right here in my neck, or what have you. And what we see a lot with adolescent scoliosis is that they say, hey, mommy and daddy, my back hurts here, it hurts here, it hurts here, it hurts here. And that can obviously lead to a lot of like, well, what's really going on? And these people typically end up bringing their child into a practice like myself as a chiropractor. They go to their doctor and they say, you know, my child has a lot of pain. They may be really fatigued. They may be really tired. They may have a lot of shortness of breath. They may even say, hey, look, they can't go out and do their athletics like all the other kids can. Really, what's going on with my child? And now most of you, if you're an adult, you probably remember having a scoliosis check when you were entering in your 7th grade or your junior high year. And the reason that is because that is when we typically see scoliosis starting. Scoliosis is more prevalent in girls than it is in boys. Now, I don't know the specific numbers, but I would probably say, just from what I see in my practice, that it's probably 65% female and maybe 35% male dominant. And the reason that is because scoliosis in itself is an estrogen-driven disease, so to speak. So what we see a lot of times is that very young females that will start their period, their menses, a little bit sooner, will start to have more scoliosis. So at school, what do they make you do? They make you turn around. Nurse would probably run his or her hand down your back. And what they're feeling for is they just want to see are all the vertebrae in alignment as you're going, you know, when you bend down and as you come up. Now with scoliosis, if you're checking your own child, what I would do is I take 2 fingers like this, and if this is the spine, actually I have a spine right here. So if this is the spine, I take my 2 fingers here, and I have them just kind of bend down and just kind of follow it down, up and down like that. Now, most people aren't going to be able to tell that if there's minor scoliosis, but if there's a lot of scoliosis, like if it's like this, as the person bends down, you can definitely tell the curvature. Also, what you can do is if you're assessing your little, is have them stand and place your hands on top of their shoulders and see, are those even? And then go take your thumbs and place them right underneath your shoulder blade or your scapula and say, are those even? And then once again, go a little bit lower onto their hips and say, are those even? And if you have, you know, shoulders that are like this, and you know they're underneath their scapulas, one's a lot higher, and their hips are at a different angle like that, then it's definitely time that you want to have a professional look at it. Now, we deal with a lot of patients that have scoliosis in practice here, and there are really 2 different types of scoliosis that are out there. The first one is what I call a structural scoliosis, and the second one is what I call a functional scoliosis. And matter of fact, there's a third one, and what that is that's a combination of the 2. Now, what a structural scoliosis is, it's more of a genetic scoliosis. Matter of fact, it's very common when I start taking history of patients that I find out that their mother or their aunt or their grandmother or their great-grandmother had scoliosis. And it's also common for it to skip 1 or 2 generations. So when you're kind of asking around like, hey, did grandma have scoliosis? Did my aunt have, did my sister have scoliosis? Understand that it is genetic as far as that. So first off, assessing what's going on from a history point of view, when you have that conversation with a health professional like a chiropractor, who I would suggest that you all start with if you have a child that may or may not have scoliosis. We're probably the most trained professional out there to assess this, more than your pediatrician. We sit down and we say, okay, number one, is there a genetic component? The second portion that I ask is, what is the functional component, right? Is that a functional scoliosis? Meaning, you know, when little Johnny or little Susie goes out and competes, does she have certain pains? Is she forced to do certain repetitive motions over and over? So for instance, I see this with a lot of young aspiring tennis players or a lot of young aspiring volleyball players, where they're doing 1 or 2 motions repeatedly over and over and over again. And what we have is a buildup of one set of muscles versus another set of muscles. So if you think about your spine, right, being even, straight up and down, if these muscles are being forced to work harder, then it would make a lot of sense that if these muscles tighten down, that the spine would lean, right? Well, exactly. And vice versa. If it's more on the low back, then you would expect that the spine would lean to the opposite direction, and thus that can lead to a little bit of a curvature that's going on. Now, here's what we can do. 2 things. First off, can we help and can we cure scoliosis? That's a question that I get all of the time. Unfortunately, if it is a genetic-only scoliosis, we cannot, quote-unquote, fix it. However, what we can do is we can slow the progression of the scoliosis that's happening. The way that we do that is underneath chiropractic care is we keep the spine very flexible by adjusting it. Now, when a person enters and I say, you know what, I think that this may be scoliosis, then what I do is I sit and I talk with the parent and I say, hey, it's always a great idea, and your pediatrician would agree, for us to take a full spine x-ray. And what we can do off of that full spine x-ray is we can take a look at all of the different levels, the spinal levels here, and we measure them from the back here, here, and here, and here, and kind of see what these are at. And what we notice is if there's a curvature, something that looks like this, now this is exaggerated, what we do is we create what they call an angle. This is called a Cobb angle, and based upon the severity of the Cobb angle, we can make different recommendations. Now, for any person that's under 20 degrees of their Cobb angle that has scoliosis, I typically will just keep them under chiropractic care. And chiropractic care, if you're seeking a chiropractor, probably, you know, every 2 to 4 weeks they should be getting a really good full spine adjustment. In addition to that, you want to make sure that they stay really active, that they do as much stretching as possible, and you keep the muscles as fluid and flexible as possible. Now, it's important to have a full spine x-ray if we think we're starting to kind of get a little bit further along, because what your pediatrician and your chiropractor will do is they'll take an x-ray, and then 6 to 12 months again they'll take another x-ray, and 6 to 12 months again they'll take another x-ray, and you start comparing them side by side. And typically what we want to see is we want to see a less than 5-degree progression every single year. If it goes less than 5 degrees, now mind you, scoliosis will be at its maximum when the male or female is through puberty. So we see it as they start into puberty, and then through puberty, typically, you know, between the ages of about 12, and it usually stops about the ages of about 18 to 21. So we want to kind of measure it. And what we typically see is that it'll be aggressive in those early years when puberty strikes, and then those degrees will start to kind of wane out a little bit, and you'll get like 4 degrees of change, 3 degrees of change, then it'll go 2, 1, half, quarter, etc., right? So during those times of a lot of growth, as you know, the body's growing crazy anyway, we really want to monitor that. So number one, genetic or structural scoliosis. Again, that has a definite genetic component. The second one, functional scoliosis, which is usually brought on by a sport, an activity, prolonged sitting in one region, etc. And then the third one is the combination of the two of them when they were put together, where we have a genetic component and then also a functional component. Now, a question people often ask me is hey Bo, should I be bracing or wearing my child to wear a brace? And like I said, typically anything under about 20 to 25 degrees of curvature using the Cobb angle, we typically don't brace, but we sometimes do. And that would be a conversation with your chiropractor, pediatrician, and also they'll start to involve an orthopedic surgeon in that, just so we can kind of keep an eye on it. And once we kind of get to those angles and we start, there's different types of braces out there. Some people want to brace all day. Some people want to brace a little bit at night. So you have to have those conversations. There's different brace names: Milwaukee, Charleston. Oh man, I'm trying to remember all the top of them, but there's some different ones. And there's also ones that your child can actually wear throughout the day now that are not too restrictive. Now, the further along the scoliosis goes, it's very often that people say, Bo, will my child have to have surgery? And the answer to that is this, is that I do not believe, after I've read hundreds of articles at this point, that anything under about 50 degrees of curvature should even be thought about having some sort of cervical intervention. Once you go 50, then we start getting into a little bit of a deeper discussion as far as should we or should we not have surgery. Now, I will say this, and I've read quite a lot of research about this, is that even people that have had surgery, matter of fact, my last executive assistant had the full spine surgery where they literally drilled the rods up and down her spine. Those people are still being shown to have curvature because the body genetically is still trying to get the bones into the right place, and it is actually bending steel over time. And not to mention, it's an incredibly invasive surgery. If you have not Googled and seen the pictures of this, oh my God, please do, but please don't do it around yourself if your stomach gets a little queasy, because you literally are opening up the entire back, and this is what you're seeing when they open it up with all the blood vessels and guts and all the other nasty muscles and all that stuff as well. So, other than that, guys, that is kind of the basics as far as scoliosis. So, let's recap really quickly one more time. There are two different types of scoliosis: structural scoliosis or genetic, and functional scoliosis, and a third is a combination of the two. We typically see scoliosis starting usually in younger females as they enter into puberty, and it lasts throughout puberty until about 18 to 21 years of age, where the curve seems to stabilize. Chiropractic care, exercise, physical therapy, and stretching are your best alternatives right now if they are less than a 20-degree Cobb angle. Anything over that, then definitely you're going to have a conversation with your pediatrician, chiropractor, and orthopedic surgeon. And then keep your child really flexible and movable. That's the big thing. Parents come in here and they freak out and they say, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And I just said, you know what? We're going to do nothing different. We're going to adjust your kid. We're going to keep them stretching. We're going to keep them moving. We're going to keep them in lots of sports. We're going to keep them very involved. And then we're going to monitor it together. So whoever, is responsible for your child's health care, whether it's your chiro or your pediatrician or even your medical doctor, make sure that you create, number one, a partnership, and second off, a plan. And then you start following that plan and you monitor there. Hope you guys are having a good day. If you have questions, please ask below this video. Mark, I see you logged on here with a few other people. So thank you guys for checking us out. Have a good one, and I look forward to talking to you guys later. Bye now.